What's up, Colorado Realtors? I'm Scott Peterson. Thank you for joining me for another COVID. We'll call it a quasi-COVID edition of Legal Bites, because believe it or not, I am not going to spend this entire segment talking about COVID, which is a great thing. I am in quarantine still. I'll be very honest with you. I've snuck out a few times. Don't tell anybody. I've snuck out a few times, snuck down to our office, which is open under the specifically limited office parameters. Not open to guests, so don't just drop by and try and see me without some sort of an appointment. But we did open up our offices, car offices, and so that's been nice. And I've been spending a little bit of time there this week. But frankly, for these purposes, I'm better set up at this point to do Legal Bites here from my home office. So here I am. It is Thursday, the 4th of June. And I'm going to talk about three things today. One is I'm going to touch briefly on the new executive orders that have come out this week, or the public health order, fifth amended actually public health order based on the governor's new executive order that came out this week. I'm going to touch then on two things that occurred at the Real Estate Commission meeting just this last Tuesday morning. One of them COVID information related. The other one, my first non-COVID Legal Bites topic in months, and so it feels great, and maybe a glimmer of hope that we can finally get back to start talking about some other things. So anyhow, on the first topic, on the new order that was issued. So as you guys at this point I think know, the governor issues an executive order that directs the CDPHE, the Colorado Department of Health and Environment, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, to issue a public health order based on the governor's guidance, essentially. And so that's what the operative language always comes out of these public health orders. And so on Tuesday, the public health order was issued, and that's what has the meat of the limitations. And this is a pretty easy one to talk to you guys about as it relates to our real estate industry. There's not a lot that impacts us, not a lot of change from the previous public health order. So in many respects, your guidance and directives and your activities that occurred during the month of May are essentially going to be occurring in much the same manner during the month of June. And so no real specific or big changes, substantive changes to anything real estate related. This order, as most of you maybe at this point know, has a lot more to do with public recreation. They call it something like the recreation in the vast great outdoors or something like that, but a lot more to do with public recreation and recreation facilities. And it's again this phased approach to doing more and more stuff. But for your purposes as a realtor, which is what I'm looking here to address, same stuff. And I will remind you specifically, there's been no change to the explicit prohibitions on open houses. So that has not changed whatsoever. And again, I don't foresee changing, at any point in the next, call it month and a half, maybe longer than that. And so hopefully you guys are figuring out ways to, market and work around your businesses and develop new business and be creative with stuff. I get it. It's a severe limitation. A subset of that I will point out, though, has been a question that I've been asked a ton, is this, is kind of new construction open houses. And a lot of people calling the hotline and inquiring directly with me about builders specifically holding, essentially models open. I think their theories there are that, a lot of these model homes are essentially sales offices, and because they're offices, and first of all, the builders, many of them aren't licensed to begin with. They don't fall under the field services category of these public health orders because that is their office. And then there's a whole separate set of parameters regarding open, non-critical offices, which I think is how they're describing some of these model homes, which is what they are using to enable prospective buyers to come and walk through. If you're a broker and you're doing, you're sitting these things, I would be very cautious, very, very cautious about using the sort of nomenclature of open house, because even that term is drawing a lot of attention and a lot of complaints, a lot of questions. And so we know very clearly that if you've got an occupied, unoccupied listing that is, existing construction or is not part of a model home or office environment in and of itself, you can't do open houses. But if you're a licensee that's doing it and doing it as part of a model home, I'd be very cautious about your terminology, and because there's a lot of prying eyes that are watching and willing to make complaints. So I have been getting that question a lot. We don't control the home builders and kind of how they analyze their fit into the order. And so I'll leave that there, but that's, I think, creating a little bit of confusion in some regard. Okay, so new order, nothing real to speak of substantive new for real estate purposes. Keep doing what you're doing. Try to keep being respectful of everybody and their take of this and how everything's going, and hopefully we will continue to get more loosening over the course of the summer as we start to see continued declines in this nasty virus. But anyhow, that's the new order. The other thing I want to touch on quickly is the commission meeting that took place just Tuesday morning, so June 2nd, I guess. One of the things COVID related, and that is that Marcia Waters, the division director, introduced an agenda item that basically talked a little bit about some of the complaints that the Division of Real Estate has seen with regard to real estate licensees and COVID and kind of how that's coming together. And I think, again, there's a very high, a very large, let's say, microscope on brokerage activities. And so complaints related to, brokers not using face masks and not, properly social distancing. These neighbors are watching people go in and they're seeing them, sort of cavalierly, no masks, no gloves, no, social distancing pop into the house. Or sellers are seeing on their Ring door cams or Nest cameras or whatever brand they're using, they're seeing that people, that brokers and their clients aren't properly adhering to the expectations of the order. And so in that regard, they're getting a variety of complaints. Her number was somewhere in the realm of about 10 to 15 that they are actively investigating right now. And they're going to, I think those 10 to 15 will end up in front of the real estate commissioners for proposed discipline at the August meeting. So stay tuned with that. But that is, I don't know if that sounds like a large number or a small number, but from my perspective, that's a pretty significant number of complaints that they're actively looking at. And to me, that indicates that there's a lot of public interest in kind of the brokerage community and what we're doing. And a lot of your competitors' colleagues are, getting frustrated because they're seeing some bad actors out there, and they want to, sort of protect the industry by making sure that they're appropriately, reporting on their colleagues. So do be cautious of that. Okay, no more COVID for this Legal Bites. The other thing that was an important upshot of the commission meeting on Tuesday was some rulemaking. And many of you, I know this, got the email yesterday from the Division of Real Estate, and maybe another email today about a webinar that Director Waters is going to be hosting at the end of this month, or near the end of this month, and related to trust accounting. And so for those of you that watched my Legal Bites video, I think it was number 50, so what seems like months or years ago, I guess it was a couple of months ago, but it seems like years ago at this point, number 50, which I think may have been the last one I actually did in the studio at Carr, I talked about the trust accounting rules and a lot of the confusion that was related to trust accounting. And so those rules were thankfully very quickly modified by the Division of Real Estate and proposed to the commissioners, and on Tuesday morning they were adopted by the commissioners. So I just want to touch on the high points there. And then I'm going to encourage you guys to, on June 23rd, from 2 to 3, you should have received an invitation to join Marcia Waters, the director of the Division of Real Estate, for a division webinar on this. They also sent out an email yesterday with some additional information and updates. These rules go into effect at the end of July, but you can start implementing them for your purposes now. So the trust accounting issue is this. If you as a licensed realtor, under license laws, or under statute, you are, even though you're not doing a brokerage activity, so you own a property on your own behalf, You're an investor, you own and manage it, you have tenants, as an example, in one of your investment properties, and you're a licensed real estate broker. I think it has often been overlooked or misunderstood by brokers that the money belonging to others, and let's say in that case, security deposits as an example, those security deposits are money belonging to others under the statutory definition of just that. And so that money shouldn't be commingled with your own. It needs to be held pursuant to Chapter 5 rules in a trust account. And up and until these rule changes had been implemented, it actually, what the rules said is that those monies had to be held in the trust account of the brokerage firm. Well, imagine a large 500-person brokerage firm that doesn't even do property management. Under the rules before they were changed on Tuesday, the licensed broker associate who was managing or not managing, but managing a property on their own behalf, not as a brokerage function, not for third parties, but they're doing it for themselves, receiving rental receipts and receiving security deposits from a tenant. The rental receipts, we know, do not have to go into any special account because those belong to you, right? They're not those. Unlike a professional property manager who would have to have an operating account to deposit rental receipts on behalf of their owner, as well as an escrow account to deposit security deposits on behalf of the tenant, you as a property owner don't have to have the operating account because the money belongs to you. But you have to have an escrow account, and up until these rules changed, that escrow account needed to be a brokerage firm escrow account. Well, that didn't make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. And so some of that was, and over and above that, you had to perform, pursuant to Chapter 5 rules, three-way reconciliation accounting every month on those accounts. And so a couple of the important parts of the rule that changed on Tuesday, and I know the email when it came out, it almost looks like the rules got more restrictive. It actually got more reasonable in my view, and Carr was supportive of these rule changes. We participated in some of the drafting, and the Division of Real Estate, as always, was fantastic about incorporating a lot of stakeholders, such as Carr and some other attorneys and brokerage firms, and so a lot of input, which was great. And so ultimately, these rule changes went into effect or were adopted by the commission, and now you can, if it's money that you're receiving that belongs to others for your own account, then that money belongs to the tenant. Then you still have to have a trust account. It still has to be a third-party fiduciary trust account. It can't just be an account called a trust account. And I talk a little bit about that in my Legal Bites 50. So that's all the same. But that trust account doesn't need to be the brokerage firm's trust account. It can be the individual broker associate's trust account, and it can be maintained outside of the brokerage firm. And then again, that applies to any money that you collect as a licensee in the state of Colorado. Just because you're licensed, this applies to you. For any money that belongs to others, security deposits, if you have short-term rentals and you're receiving, deposits for other people, if you have a business that's a painting business, as an example that I've heard used, and if you paint on the side, and somebody gives you a deposit, pays 50% up front as a deposit to secure your services as a painter, well, that's money belonging to others, and because you're a licensee, that money is supposed to be held in a true fiduciary escrow account at a financial institution, and needs to have two-way reconciliation accounting now under the new rule change performed on it monthly. So that's not nearly as complicated as the three-way stuff. And so anyhow, I think a positive rule change, again, a reflection of the Division of Real Estate sort of jumping in and taking care of very quickly some issues that arose based on the rule changes that were adopted January 1st. And so do be mindful of that. If you have questions about the trust accounting stuff, I'd encourage you to jump on Marcia's or Director Waters' June 23rd webinar from 2 to 3. There, you should be able to sign up online. And as always, in between now and then, if you have questions, you can call the Carr Legal Hotline. And I am so happy to be talking to you guys about something other than COVID for at least a portion of this. So hope everybody's safe and healthy and doing well. Have a fantastic weekend. I hope everybody's enjoying some of our spring, summer weather and some of these great Colorado thunderstorms that we're getting most afternoons. Take care, and we will be talking to you again on the next episode of Legal Bites. Thanks, guys.